Okay. Hello everybody, my name is Sergey Baklikov and this is my channel, which is normally the vlogs from Russia, but now during pandemic staying home I also making such a live streams. It used to be just questions and answers. Now it is also the reviews of Russian news to make the difference. The most interesting of the news are getting to my live today. It's 19th of May 2020. Let's get it started. I told you before that Mikhail Mishustin, the Prime Minister of Russia, got infected with coronavirus like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was already more than 2 weeks ago. But now he is completely recovered and got back to his work today. I told you before that there was many rumors about that and even doubts that Mishustin will get back to Prime Minister work. That at this moment the government more in need of a crisis manager type of minister, but everything turned to be easier as I supposed. He's got sick, he's gone. He recovered, he got back to work. In the same time today, Dmitry Medvedev, the former Prime Minister of Russia and a former President of Russia who was in between of Putin terms, who Mishustin replaced now, said that he don't see a close end for today's crisis in Russia. Means it's gonna go for a long time in his opinion, so he's definitely don't look optimistic at this. The parents of already 10 million kids are applied for the government support dedicated to coronavirus pandemic in amounts of 10,000 rubles to each Russian kid. It is about $150. Let me remind you that I told you in my Sunday live, recently Russian government giving one-time support for all kids who are not older than 15 years old. When Putin told about it, the website of government services just got down. People were registering about like 3,000 applications in a minute. But now I guess it's stabilized already because most of the people who wanted already did this. The Russian Federal Service for Surveillance on Customers. So I started telling you that the Russian Federal Service for Surveillance on Consumer Rights Protection and Human Well-being recommended to reduce the amount of seats in airplanes twice because of coronavirus pandemic. By their words, here also have to work a principle of social distancing. So they want to allow only no more than 50% of seats to be filled in with passengers. Besides that, such a social distancing must be provided already on a stage of the registration for a flight. To me, it sounds like definitely a bad news because such limitations definitely will make the tickets more expensive, and airline companies definitely will delegate these losses on passengers, that's for sure. What do you think, dudes? In Crimea now canceled the self-isolation regime. Most of enterprises are allowed to work again. Same as free walks of people, except 65 plus people who are considered as a high-risk group, they have to wear masks. But the work for tourist industry is out of business yet in Crimea, which is no good because touristic business there is a big thing, because Crimea, being located on a coast of Black Sea, is a pretty touristic region, so there's so many touristic jobs. Meanwhile, in Sochi, which is the main touristic city of Russia, the host of Winter Olympic Games 2014, going to open 65 beaches and sanatoriums since 1st of June. It's good, I think, but what I don't like now that all this time we all the time see the news which are contradictory to each other. So they allow one things, in the same time they limit another things, like that social distancing in the airplanes, where will be available only 50% of seats. But come on, so 65 beaches, they are opening in Sochi since the 1st of June. Okay. Also today, Turkey announced that will open its borders for Russians already tomorrow at the 20th of May. But they say that for the first time there will be available only so-called wellness tours. Who knows how it will go in real? Maybe it will be called like wellness tour, but practically there will be not too many difference with just a regular vacation. Until the end of month, they also said that 30 more countries will be allowed to come. Tourists will come into Turkey through airports of Istanbul and Ankara. They will have to will show these statements that they don't have coronavirus infection. But the collision here is that Russians, however, still will not be able to visit Turkey because from Russian side and international flights are closed. Well, anyway, at least it's good to hear that somewhere they already started opening the borders, which is, I think, good. Moscow actually stopped to follow for self-isolation regime, and today was the lowest index of so-called self-isolation. It's dropped down to minimum. Yandex, which is actually the biggest IT company in Russia, calculate this index based on GPS and mobile data of the users. When President of Russia, Putin, said a week ago that it's the end of non-working days, I told you that most of people definitely, in terms of Russia, consider this as the end of lockdown, even though there's still many limitations. But most Russians prefer to hear only the main parts and interpret it as the end of lockdown, because people really get tired of lockdown, In the same time, it makes virusologists sick, and they are already asking to extend the self-isolation regime for Moscovites. They said that for now, the end of non-working holidays and decrease of new COVID cases in Russia, people don't have to consider as a complete freedom. The positive dynamics are started, but now yet need to be able to keep it going down even more until the very end, when it will stop to be pandemic. Meanwhile, today Russia allows bringing a live fish from China. Earlier it was banned, of course, because of COVID pandemic, but now it's done. Besides that, the Ministry of Agriculture of Russia also removed the ban for exotic pets, insects and reptiles from China to Russia. So yes, as I told you, these days so many contradictory news are coming all the time. An interesting time we're living. The main religion in Russia is an Orthodox Christianity. The second biggest religion in Russia is Islam. So now it's a time when a big Muslim holiday called Eid Al-Fitr is coming. For this reason, the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, addressed to all Muslims of Russia and asked to celebrate it at home and not meeting with a big companies of people. Putin said that he knows how serious Muslims treat this holiday and follow for traditions, but this year it makes sense to mark it at home. The heads of Islam mosques are also calling for it in Russia now. And it makes sense, coronavirus. I told you that now many Orthodox priests are dying. Today, the Council of Federation of Russia and Ministry of Health of Russia supported an idea to increase an age limit for an alcohol sales from 18 to 21 years old in Russia. Already at the 20th of May, actually tomorrow, this law project will be offered for consideration in the government featuring the Vice Prime Minister of Russia. The deputy said that now during a pandemic, the care of health of nation gets a special meaning, that we have to raise an immunity of nation. That's what they said. In some regions of Russia, there was just registered the growth of young people drinking and alcohol. In the same time, believe me, as to the kid of 1990s, back then way more youth were drinking and alcohol and smoked cigarettes. Now way less young people are into alcohol and just unhealthy way of life, such at times, but still, now just different standards as well. The former deputy of the city of Nizny Novgorod recently was arrested for ALV machine scam. This mofo was trying to sell out-of-date ALV machines for a price of like $10,000 each. That's an old ALV machines that was produced yet in 1990s, and for a long time they were on a storages and they hadn't any permission to work. So he got them for like 5,000 rubles, which is about like 70 bucks for one item, and tried to sell for 10,000. It seems like some of doctors of the hospitals where he tried to sell this, knowing this, so they reported it to the police, and police arrested this motherfucker. Well, this is definitely no good, because, you know, like in such a pandemic times, somebody trying to take an advantage of this. We all know that many people lost their jobs recently and slowed down. A business at least began to make less money, but today they are published the professions which is vice versa during pandemic started to make more money. So today they are reported that the labor of odd lads growing up 60%. The loaders began to make 35% more, and 90, almost twice percent more started to make the cooks. That's really interesting. It seems like people now began to visit restaurants less, but however they keep ordering the foods, just food from restaurants for takeaway or for a delivery, no less. Well, in my videos for the last weeks, when I just was walking through the St. Petersburg during pandemic, you could see that there's a lot of Yandex Food or Delivery Club couriers, and every time we see this, actually it's a courier delivering the stuff to somebody. Okay, in Kamchatka region today, the conditional term for 2 years of conditional term got the residents who in internet was calling to burn out the members of Russian Guard. It was considered like the call for an extremist activity. So you don't have to say shit in the internet. Next thing. Rich Russians recently started to buy more of bunkers. That's what today reported the Forbes. Forbes said that this information is based on data of companies which are constructing the bunkers, the shelters. The manager of, let's say, Rising S company, Gary Lynch, confirmed many requests from Russians. The price of such shelters starts with $150,000. Gary said they delivered the shelters to the ports of the United States, and they don't know the final destinations, the final cities of Russia where it all coming. But most probably it's Moscow and Moscow region. He also said that during pandemic, they asked for bunkers, for shelters growing up 2,000%. It's actually like 20 times. In the same time, the Russian company that making the shelters said that most of bunkers comes to Moscow region, to such an elite districts like Rublyovka, Yaroslavka, Dmitrievka, Novaya Riga. Also, some came to St. Petersburg, but not to me, not to me. I am not an oligarch yet. You know, those bunkers have an airtight doors and windows, and independent energy sources, and the connection and stuff like that. But people are buying this not only to protect themselves from bacteria, from pandemic, from viruses, but also just from, you know, maybe riots and stuff like that. And that's actually all the most interesting news for today, for fucking 19th of May 2020 in Russia. Yes, most of the news was about the pandemic, unfortunately, but what we can do with this? We now have to actually, for some time, live with this. Fun boy, thanks for